This is Bishop John Doerfler of the Diocese of Marquette. My last message brought to a close our series of reflections on the moral life, which is a section of a longer series on the new evangelization. The reflections on the moral life help us to be a friend of Jesus, because what we freely and deliberately choose to do affects our relationships with others, including our relationship with Jesus. This message begins our next series of reflections on prayer to help us deepen our friendship with Jesus. Prayer is a gift from God. We cannot pray merely on our own efforts. He takes the initiative to draw us closer to Him, and by the grace of God, we respond to His invitation with prayer. All relationships involve an initiative and a response. For example, if a man and a woman go on a date, it does not just happen. There has to be an invitation to go on the date and an acceptance of the invitation. God always takes the initiative with us, and He gives us the grace to respond to Him. Thus, prayer is our free response in grace to accept God's invitation to a loving relationship with Him. Quoting St. John Damascene, the Catechism of the Catholic Church defines prayer as the raising of one's mind and heart to God, or the requesting of good things from God. The raising of our mind and heart to God is not merely active, because we cannot do it completely by ourselves. Yet prayer is not passive, because it involves an effort on our part. Prayer is receptive. In raising our minds and hearts to God, our role is to open ourselves to His activity in our hearts, to be receptive to His initiative in our lives. As an analogy, prayer is like catching a ball. We cannot catch it unless someone first throws it to us. Then we need to open our hands to receive it. In prayer, God wishes to speak to our minds and our hearts, and we need to open our lives to receive Him. The ultimate reason for prayer is love, to respond to God's love by loving Him in return. God calls us to an intimate relationship with Him, and we must take time alone with Him who dwells within us to foster that friendship. We see this desire to be with the Lord in the calling of the disciples. In the Gospel of John, chapter 1, verses 35 to 39, two of John the Baptist's disciples were following Jesus. When Jesus asked what they were looking for, they asked Him where He was staying. He invited them to come and see, and they stayed with Him. Jesus likewise invites us to stay with Him. In our prayer, let us make a generous response to the Lord's invitation to stay with Him in the quiet of our hearts. This is Bishop John Doerfler of the Diocese of Marquette.